Okay, so I've got my site photo at the size I want to work with. In other words, it's at 1:1 now. It's at the real size that the building should be. And then I want to now rotate it so that it's going to make sense when we start working on this in Revit, but also so that we have a record of true north. And so if you're wondering where true north is, because this is a satellite image, north is straight up. And you can be pretty sure of that with any satellite photo or image that you have. And so the side of the image is going to remember true north. If we rotate this photo, we've still got the sides there to use if we need to find true north again. So we can rotate this pretty freely, as long as you remember that when you take it into Revit, that the side is always pointing to true north. And that's going to be really useful when we work on it there, so you don't need to keep it at this angle in order to work with it in with true north in Revit, in other words. And that means I can rotate it so that it makes more sense with these buildings that we have. So we're working on this building and this building, and it'll make a lot more sense if they're at a right angle to the page, or perpendicular and parallel with the page. And so to help me do that, I'm going to draw a line to use for measuring, and to draw that line I'm going to make a new layer to begin with. So I've opened layer properties. If you don't remember the shortcut, LA, enter, does the same thing. Layer properties button there is probably just as easy. And then the new layer button, if you don't remember, is the first button in that group of 4, the one with the little yellow asterisk on the corner there, the icon. So new layer, and I'll just call this roof outline. And then I'll set the colour to magenta, just so it's a bright colour that stands out against the image. And then I'm going to make it the current layer just by double clicking on the little icon to the left of the name. And that's all I need to do there for now, so I'll close the layer dialog, and now I'm going to zoom right in and draw a line along the edge of the roof that I want to be straight, essentially. So I'm going to click on the edge there of that gutter, and just try and pick up a similar point on the edge of the gutter there at the end of the roof line. Enter to finish, and I've got a line then that I can rotate. It's easier than rotating the image, it's just a better reference. And so now I'm going to use the rotate command. I'm going to select both the image and the line. Enter, and so you can see then it's told me 2 total were found. If you don't see that, just cancel it and start again. Okay, and so then my base point, I can really use any point. So I'll use the I can use the end of the line there, or the corner of the image, just to show you something different. I'll use that corner as the base point for the rotate overall. Then I'm going to type R for reference. So this is probably the trick. If you've used AutoCAD before and you've used the rotate command a few times, you'd know how to do all of those things that I showed you, but this option, typing R for reference, you may not have seen. So just R, enter, and it's going to ask me to specify a new reference angle. So here you need to click 2 points. So I'm going to click 1 point on the beginning of that line, and then a new point on the other end of that line. Okay, so it's giving me a new reference angle, and then notice it's gone back to using the initial base point that I started with. So you don't need, the base point doesn't need to be on the line. Okay, and so there, the point of this is to bring this around so that it's a straight line. So notice if I click on the end of that, on the other corner of the image there, that the line now is horizontal. You can see in the middle of the image there. I'll just zoom in so you can see it. So notice the line is horizontal. That's what we're trying to achieve, which means the building essentially is oriented that way. Right, so now I want a copy of this line for the other side of the building. So I could just go and draw another line, but a really good trick here instead is to use either offset, or I'm actually going to use copy to show you a way of making it a bit more, I was going to say accurate, but actually make it a round number, so that again when we're working in Revit we're working with rounded numbers rather than numbers that have strange decimals, which is always good when you're measuring things, to try and keep the numbers as logical as possible. Okay, so here I'm going to click copy, select my line, enter, and then when I pick it up I'm going to use a base point on that line somewhere. Okay, so it can be anywhere along that line. I'm going to take it straight up, and notice it's giving me a measurement from the point that I started. So it's telling me there, I can see 11,000, 11,447, 11,446. It's pretty close to 11,500. Right, so I'm just going to say that's close enough to 11.5 metres, and that's an easier measurement to work with than 11, what it is now, 512.0046. And when we're working in Revit and we turn all of these things into walls, we want things that are again using more logical or rational measurements. It would have all been built using imperial measurements anyway, so you're going to have some funny numbers when you go and measure the bricks, but again you can always round that off as well. So here I'm going to type 11,500, enter. I've got a copy of the line, and I can use a similar approach for a lot of these others. So it doesn't always need to be like that, but the more you do this, the more rational you make the measurements, especially for the parts you're going to work with. So I'll press escape now. You're working again with these two buildings here. So I'm going to draw another line now from, well, I could draw from the end there, but that end point maybe, again, just thinking about how to make this easier when you work on it in Revit, maybe isn't completely logical, so it might be better to start a new point along the edge of that image there somewhere where I think the gutter would be. Again, bring it down using either, you can see there it's snapping to the angles, but that's kind of a fluke because I've got polar on, sorry, and that's fine, but if you remember ortho, it's another useful option which will make sure the lines are at right angles. So I'll turn that on. And then I'm just going to bring this down. So I'm going to say, like, these two lines here are going to be the basis for my other lines. So in other words, they're my set out edges. And this corner here maybe is going to be my set out point because that's where the two buildings join. And so do you remember the easy way of drawing those two lines together in AutoCAD? Yeah, you can use chamfer. There's another one people probably use more often. Yeah, that's why it's in Revit it would be trim to corner, but Fillip in AutoCAD. So I just want to remind you about those things in AutoCAD. So Fillip, check that the radius is set to 0, which it should be because it's the first time we've used it. You can see there, radius is 0. And I'll choose those two lines, join them together. And then again use copy, select my line. Oh, I didn't get it. Sorry, try that again. There we go, one found. Enter, pick it up on the line. And then take it over to the left. And by eye, just try and get that to line up as best I can. So I can see there, well, it's not going to be my friend and make it 11,500. It's slightly less. But maybe we can just cheat a bit and say, well, it's probably a similar size to the other building. It'll make our life a lot easier if the two buildings are the same width. So let's type in 11,500 for that as well. So what I'm trying to do here, as well as giving you something to work with in Revit, is also give you something that you can all print out to scale and use to go and then draw over when you're taking your measurements. Because if you can print something out to scale and then draw in your own measurements to scale over that, it's going to make your life a lot easier when you're measuring. And have you started, I suppose you wouldn't have started measuring this one up yet because you're still working on Strickland House. But anyhow, you'll be measuring this soon. I know you'll be doing it in groups, but you'll have to do it, some of it individually as well. Yeah, you'll definitely have to measure this up. Yeah, you won't be given drawings. So yeah, it's a really good exercise. I mean, any real project, any project in the real world, that's where you start going and measuring up. Yeah, they send you that, especially the juniors. They're the first people to go out on site and measure everything up. Take a tape measure and off you go. In the old days, you didn't even get a survey. Often they just send you out to measure up before even getting a survey. But these days, usually you'll have a survey to start with. But the survey only has the outline of the building, and you shouldn't rely on that. You should only use the survey for the site measurements and levels. So yeah, you measure and work out everything yourself for the building. Yeah. It's a really good thing to practice. We used to start in first year. That's how we used to start every project. But now, yeah, I know. Have you got a Magic Plan? Is that what you're using? Oh, laser measuring. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. That's what you need if you're going to do it professionally. But then you've got apps on even on phones. The iPhone one that I've got is pretty good. That Magic Plan, and yeah, it's not super completely accurate, but it's pretty good, and it will draw the plan for you as you take images of the corners of the room. So that's a good thing to look at. But I wouldn't rely on it for measuring a real project. I mean, it's good for quick things to do initially, but the best way is with a laser measuring tool. There are different ones, but yeah, with a laser level or something, and then or just a laser measure, and then do it the old way, do your own drawings, and then just use that to take your measurements.
Where do you get laser measuring tools?
Oh, the hardware stores. Yeah, they're standard these days. Oh, right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they are. And so they're really good to start with, but the laser measuring is amazing, yeah. And you can just stand in the one point and just,
I was working in a carpet industry. We used to buy software that does that. Do it on a shoot.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, yeah, and like I said, you'll get a survey as well as a starting point, and they'll give you that in DWG format. And Magic Plan and others export DWGs for you as well. But again, it's not a difficult skill to just be able to sketch out the measurements you need and draw it up yourself in AutoCAD. And then you know it's right, because those programs make your life easier, but they'll also put in a lot of extra things that you don't want. And anyhow, what you're doing here, you'll see, it doesn't take very long. So here I'm just going to draw a few more lines for this other part of the building. So again, just drawing a rough edge there. And then again, using copy. Often you use offset for this, but because I don't know how far across that is, copy is just going to make it a little bit easier. So again, I can see there, that's pretty close to 10 metres across. So let's say 10,000. And then again, it'd be nice if this distance from there to this corner was a round number. So I'm going to try using measure there and go from that corner up to, diagonally up to there. Right, and so you can see that's a diagonal measurement, but notice that the distance command also gives you the delta Y measurement. Yeah, exactly, the vertical distance. So it's 3.5 metres directly, but vertically it's, let's say, 1600. So again, nice round numbers to work with, make life easier. So again, using, well, this time I'll use offset just to show you something different. If you haven't used it for a while, offset is your best friend in AutoCAD. So using offset, and then my distance is 1600, enter, click on the line, click above. So that's the line that's going to be for the edge of this roof. So to join them together, again, I can just use Fillip now, join these two together, and then fill it again, join those two. Oh, with offset. So, oh no, it wasn't the height, just the vertical measurement is all I meant, yeah. So the height in terms of the page, not the vertical height. So Okay, so now again, I want the other side of that building to be copied down using hopefully a fairly round number. So looks close enough to 10,000 again, luckily. And it should be a square, this building. So, and that's really a good example of what I'm trying to show you, because if you were to just trace over this, even if you had it set to right angles, you might have it slightly off a square. And that'll just create work for you when you're working on it in Revit, because if everything isn't even, if you're copying things from one wall to another or rotating them and they're not exactly the same, you'll get things, you know, a fraction of a mil off, and it just creates work for everyone. So believe it or not, even with just that, we're going to have something decent to start working with in Revit. But I'll show you a few little tricks if you wanted to start drawing in the roof plan, which wouldn't be a bad thing, because on your site and locality plan, that's something that you'll want. I can draw some lines. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the accuracy here, because this is just a projection from the main building, and it doesn't need to be, you know, I don't need to be as careful as with those other main lines. So I'm just going to draw a line coming down there that I know is straight, and then another one. Notice I'm not trying to connect things initially, because it'll just throw things off. And here, I'm drawing from this corner, so I can come across, and again, just because I can, I'm going to make this a round number, so 6,000. And then coming down. Alright, so now I'll use trim. Do you remember the little trick with trim if you want to make everything a cutting edge? You can highlight it all. Yeah, that's one way. Yeah, you can do that. There's an even easier way. Just press enter. So when you start trim, notice it's got select all as the option in brackets. So if you press enter, it selects everything for you. You don't have to select it.
So you just select trim,
Yep.
and then the way it's select what you want, and you press enter again.
Yeah, or just select nothing. And press, yeah. If you select something and then press enter, it thinks you just want what you've selected. But if you don't select anything, press enter and it selects the lot. Which,
And then you're trimming the line that actually went to
that's right. Yeah. So there, I'm just going to click on these segments that I want to take away, and they're removed. Okay, so now I want to draw some lines for the roof. Even though Revit will give this to us automatically, it doesn't hurt just to show you how to draw this in AutoCAD, because not everyone knows. Right, so I've got Ortho on. Remember, next to that you've got the polar button, polar tracking. And I'm going to click on the little arrow next to polar and make sure it's got 45 set for the angles. And they even tell you now what the other angles are. So, do you all remember how angles are measured? And this is the same in Revit and in AutoCAD. Which way do angles get measured? Clockwise or anti-clockwise? You think it was clockwise because it's anti-clockwise. That's the convention. If it's not specified, it's anti-clockwise. It's only some fields they use clockwise in surveying, but most fields, architecture, engineering generally, even in most maths fields, it's anti-clockwise. And then it's from three. Just because when people were drawing, they were starting with a baseline going to the right and then measuring up from there. And this just seems more natural, I suppose, especially if you're right-handed. Otherwise the angles would have faced the other way, I suppose. This seems to make sense. Because if you're thinking about a triangle...
From the baseline, and then that's 45, and then that's...
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, it's just that clocks happen to go the other way. So, yeah, they were probably doing it that way before clocks even were invented. So, and so, if you've got 45 set as your base angle, then these are going to be the other increments, 90, 135, 180, and so on, going around the full circle to 360 degrees. And so that's going to help us here. If I set that to 45, and then go to draw another line from the corner, coming down and to the left, what's the angle? 225. Right, so just going over that again, 0 degrees, up and to the right is 45, straight up's 90, up and to the left is 135, straight to the left is 180, that's a straight line, and then down to the left is 225. So they're the angles you want to be working with when you're drawing something like a roof plan. Everything ends up being in increments of 45. So that's the main tip I'm trying to give you here, that's going to be your typical angle. Now notice this one is a bit different. That means, that tells you something straight away. That roof's at a different pitch. So not all roofs are at the same pitch. If we look at this one, I'll just cancel that for now. So here, that roof would be all at an even pitch. So if I draw a line there, you'll see that should be close enough to 45 degrees. But this one is obviously quite a bit off 45 degrees, and you can tell also because the ridge line there is not even. So if you ever see a line where two roofs connect and they're not 45, then you know that there's a roof that doesn't have an even pitch, which is unusual. Yeah, you can work it out, but it's a bit of maths involved. But yeah, you can. Yeah. Here, the easier way would be to go and count bricks. Count bricks to the ridge. Yeah, that roof there is at less of a slope than this roof here. That's okay. So I'm going to draw a line from there and just trace the roof line, roughly. So I'm just drawing parallel because we'd have a gutter there in reality. And in fact, sorry, what I should do to make it less confusing is draw in a gutter. So the gutter there, we'll just round off and say is 100 mil. So I'm going to offset these lines 100. I've just clicked on the offset button. 100 mil. And then you probably might know that if you make polylines, you don't have to join these. But I think that's making it too complicated. So I'm just offsetting the individual lines as they are. Yeah, inside. Yeah. 100 mil. Yeah.
So would you do a midpoint on that each?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so I'll fill up these together. So if you don't remember, enter repeats the last command, so you don't have to keep clicking on the button.
What do you call that thing that was window?
If it was no, the dorm is within the roof, so that's just a gable. Yeah. So I'll draw a line from the midpoint here. Notice the midpoint isn't coming up on that line. So again, coming down to the toggles down here. The little rectangle with the asterisk is your snap icon. And if you click on the arrow next to that, you can just choose midpoint to turn it on. Click on the arrow again to hide it. And then now I'll get the midpoint symbol. Just come down and make sure that's a straight line. And so here it doesn't matter if we don't follow that exactly. So I'll just draw another line from the corner there and just trace. I'm not trying to connect it to the other line, I'm just trying to get the angle roughly right. And it's because I've done the gutter probably a different size and a few other things different to what's there in reality. And actually, sorry, I'm not thinking, there wouldn't be a gutter there. So let's get rid of that line and extend this one up. Not that it's going to help me with anything here, but just so it looks right. And there, it's snapping to a extension intersection. But you might remember if you also turn on perpendicular, that'll help you with that kind of thing, so it goes straight up. No, so sorry, Oh yeah, so this roof, it just doesn't follow that because the roof's a different pitch. All the others will be 45, but it's not worth setting the angle just for this one. And so there, what you could do though, well, I can see maybe just by adjusting that line a little bit, it'll be closer to the angle that it should be. And then the other thing is, if I get these two lines, and then use move, just bring them over slightly. So I'll undo that and do it again. So it's maybe a bit too far. Maybe I'll try 200. Yeah, that's probably better. The gutter's off there, but that's okay. And that's at least closer to the valley that you've got there. It's not critical anyway, because this is only a small part of the building where it projects. And then to make that symmetrical, exactly, we can get rid of these lines, delete those, and then select the two others that I've drawn for the gutter and the valley there. Click on mirror, and then click on the two ends of that ridge line that I've drawn. Yeah, I'm probably getting a little bit fussy there, but again, it's all going to help you when you take it into Revit. So I might go and do a simpler part of the roof and then just show you a little bit more before you can do this. So I'm just filleting just to join those again, and then the valleys can be joined. Oh, thanks. And so having done all of that, it'd be nice if these were all the same size. These project a little bit more, but with any luck they're the same width. So do you remember with the editing tools how to select things when you use commands like copy and move, rotate? So it's up to you if you want to select them, the objects first, or start the command first. So I'll just show you both ways maybe to remind you. If you select the things first, like I've just done, then click copy, you can then pick them up and move them over. Or you can click on the command first, select the objects, and then you just need to remember to press enter to let it know you've finished selecting, which you wouldn't do if you'd selected the objects first. So I'm going to pick it up on the end of the ridge there, and then snap to the end of this ridge to place it. There's no copy and rotate in AutoCAD, you just have to do the two commands. So now I can select my new objects and click on rotate, pick it up on the corner there, and then because I've got polar on, it'll snap to 90 degrees. Swing it around. And that's probably close enough. Again, it's a little bit wider. I've drawn it wider, but it'll probably work better with the roof size. Like a lot of these old buildings, they look nice and even, and the brick sizes are, but you'd be surprised how much little things vary here and there. So it's alright if you round it off. No one's going to check all those measurements. And so there, what we want is this corner here to sit on the inside of the gutter. So I'm going to select all of this. Again, use move and then bring that corner point across. So it's perpendicular to the inside line. Okay, so the final command I'm going to show you before just finishing off a few things is stretch. So I've used move, copy, rotate, trim, mirror and fillet. They're all your main editing tools. We use scale as well. Array you don't really use that often, you'd be surprised. It's a good tool when you need it, but you don't seem to use it all that much. And then stretch, like I was saying. So with stretch, any of you use stretch or remember the main trick? What does it always ask you for at the beginning of stretch? Do you remember? Yeah, and so how have you got to select them? It's a really good way of remembering the options you've got in AutoCAD. Yeah, well, right to left, that's the trick. Okay, so if you remember in AutoCAD, you can select either with a window or a crossing. So a window is left to right, and a crossing is right to left. So you probably intuitively remember this. When you select left to right, it selects everything inside the window. Right to left selects everything inside and everything it's touching. And so you need that with a crossing because you want it to select the things that it's crossing over as well as the things inside. So the trick is right to left with stretch. And it reminds you, it's just that now you don't see it unless you click on the little arrow and you see that little message. It tells you select objects by crossing window or crossing polygon. So crossing right to left. So here I'm going to click a point above these lines. Right, that's my right point, and then going to the left, I'm going to cross over the lines of the gutter that I want stretched. Okay, so clicking there, enter, then I can pick it up. I'll just do that in the middle there, take it over to the left. That's good enough for now. Oh yes, I'm just zooming and panning to refresh the image, because when you draw over the image, it'll just give you those little black lines. Oh yeah, I could turn the image off, but I want to be able to see it so I can trace it. So just zooming with the wheel refreshes it. That's all. Oh yeah, no, sorry, to turn it off, so when you pan, it disappears. So yeah. Oh no, so just holding down the pan button, yeah, which is a really handy shortcut as well. So again, trim, and here I'm going to select edges because I want to choose which cutting edges I need this time. So I'm going to select the top and the bottom line, enter, and then click on the one in between, and then enter, and again I'll do the little pan, and then that way it doesn't leave me with extra little lines that I don't want. Trim again. This time I'll use the other trick I showed you, pressing enter to select all edges, and then just click on these two bits I want to take away, and that's going to give me enough of the roof, and you could then copy it down and modify it to get the next one. If I was you, I'd draw the whole college, all the roof, because that'll give you a site plan, and then you don't need to model all of that up in Revit to get your site plan, and that means you can do a nice locality plan as well. So that's the final thing I'm going to show you, actually how to get started with your locality plan too. Oh yeah, but the final thing with the roof there, I can finally use the angles that I've set. So with the line tool, again, I'm just going to pick a point for my for the start of my roof, and let's say, well, going from the midpoint there, even though it's off the roof line there, you can see these are off to the left. Let's say they should really be centered. So from the midpoint there, and I'll go up to about here. I could round that off, but I'm not going to worry. And then now if I come down and to the right, it'll be 315 degrees, an increment of 45. Okay, and then again going the other way. Okay, so that's okay as a starting point. We'll assume that the gable there is in line with the edge here. Okay, so now I can use mirror to get the opposite side, and then again mirror at 45 to get the diagonally opposite one, and then again mirror. Oh well, because I've got polar set, I'll just undo that one and do it again. Yeah, so there, that's a bit of a tricky one, but yeah, that works. So mirror going from the corner there up and to the left at 45 degrees, which is 135. Yeah, well, it flips over the mirror line, which yeah. So with square buildings, it works really well. Yeah, so again, mirror this time going the opposite way, and that's good enough. I'd work out what's happening there. Sorry, that's not right because there's something else happening there. We'll delete that. That's where there must be a carpet of some sort there. So what else have we got? There's another quick one, same idea here. I won't spend too long on it because it's all the same process. So drawing some lines to get started at right angles. And here you don't need to be as careful because you're not going to do the interior of this building. So just drawing lines at 45 and making sure that they connect. So using mirror, and then you can join them together and that'll give you the rest of the building. So you can just repeat that technique to get the rest of the roof outline, and don't draw in too much detail because you're doing the detail in Revit. Then not a bad idea to get the outline of the streets. So just to show you a couple of other little things, you'd want to make another layer for that, definitely. So something like road or street. I probably have one for the road and one for the pavement, or one for the curb. That depends how fussy you want to be. I've done a lot of these, so I get a little bit fussy. And again, you'd probably make it a grey or something, but later you could make it that colour to begin with. Just want to make it a bright colour so it's visible over the image. You can change these colours later. Whatever you like really, but something bright doesn't hurt. These you don't need to be anywhere near as fussy, so you can just draw lines over the streets there. And just think about how you can make your life easier when you join everything together. So if you don't try to draw the curves, just try and draw the lines in for the straight bits and let AutoCAD do the work for the curves. Right, so it's a bit of a funny, there's a bit going on there with the footpath. You probably all walk down there and you'd know it's a lot going on, but just keep it simple. And there we go. I know there's a couple of projections there, so let's actually just go down to here, and there's a bit that comes out I know now, so and you can also go and have a look at what's there as well as tracing. But what I was getting to there with the corner, you can use Fillip again, and here you'd want to set a radius. You can see the radius is set to 0, so hopefully remember with Fillip, R and then enter lets you set a radius. And by eye that looks like it's about 2 meters to me, so let's try 2000. Join the two lines, close enough. Right, so you can just continue like that, draw in some more lines for the curb, offset those, and that'll give you the other side for the gutter. Again, you don't need to be too fussy, you're not building any of this. So as long as you've got some outline, and then you can label the streets, and that gives a really nice way of, in your presentation, locating your project and putting it in context, letting everyone know what they're looking at. So even if it's just rough like this, again remember when you've set a fillet radius that you'll need to go back and adjust it. So there it might be a much smaller radius. Like that. Okay, so you can just trace some of the street outlines, and then if you remember the original image is on layer 0, so if I turn that off then you can see just the lines that you've drawn. Alright, so you'd then continue and draw in as many lines as possible, but even at this stage I'm going to save this file just to finish off. Save it as obviously an AutoCAD file. So more, if I can spell, more site. Yeah, site should do. Well, we're saving it in 2015, but it's 2013 is the format. So they haven't put out a new AutoCAD format since then, yeah. And then I've got Revit open. So even at this point, I can go and make a new project in Revit using the architectural template. Click OK. Just want to show you one little thing in Revit at least before you finish. Okay, and so then you've got in your floor plans, you should have a site floor plan. Open that up, right click on it and go to duplicate view and then duplicate to make a copy of that site plan. You might remember me encouraging you to do this before. So we've got site copy 1. Notice that's one of the new features they call it a new feature in 2015. The way it gives you the duplicate names, it's a little bit better than it used to be. So then we can go to rename and we'll call that site with image. Sorry, not image, sorry, DWG. And then on the Insert tab, click on Link CAD, because we're going to keep working on that AutoCAD drawing. Yep. Okay, and then, does anyone remember the option that you'd want to use here to bring in a 2D drawing? You should pretty much always click on a certain option that you have here. Yeah, it's to do with that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, current view only. Yep, that's it. So when it's 2D, just try to remember that. You should always use that option, current view only. Yeah. It's only if it's 3D that you should leave that turned off, generally. Turn it on, because it's 2D. So that's it. Open. And there we go. So you've got the AutoCAD file. It's a bit hard to see the lines, but they are there. And you can turn layers off. So if that image gets in the way when you want to use the lines, you can turn the layer off in Revit. In fact, I might just quickly show you that because it's an easy thing. Visibility graphics, imported categories. On that tab there, you'll see there's layer 0. So I can just hit apply, and then I can be sure that my lines have come across. To bring it back on, again, apply, and it's still there. So that's it. And then when you start drawing more in Revit, you've got that as a reference, and that'll be a really good starting point to draw everything else. And honestly, I have started, this is the absolute truth, I've started really big projects, multi-story buildings, exactly that way. So I've started drawing on them before I've even been to the site, and before I've got the survey or anything like that. You just find, as long as you know the address, you can start working on it. It's a pretty good method. Yep.
Is that still a roof line or is it just become the outline?
Yeah, it's just the two set of 2D lines, but then we can generate 3D forms from that in Revit.
So why did you do the roof?
Oh, because for the parts that we're not going to model up. So you won't want to model all of it in Revit, but it'd be nice to have the whole building shown in your site and other drawings in Revit, and so you can just turn those lines back on for that. And it's just good practice as well, being able to draw that in AutoCAD. So anyway, that should be plenty to get you started, and it's a good way of just getting back into the swing of things with AutoCAD and getting used to drawing with it again. And again, for site plans, and definitely for things like Locality Plan, modelling it all up in 3D is a huge effort, and the site modelling tools in Revit are limited at best. A lot of really experienced Revit people I know who use Revit every day, that's the biggest complaint they have, is the site tools in Revit, because they just are really limited. And it's often not necessary at all, because those things only need to be 2D, so do it in AutoCAD. It's easier and quicker, and probably looks better too.